Should come on in a second. There we go.
Fantastic. Awesome. Welcome everyone to Brisbane Azure User Group. So we've got a cracker of an event lined up for tonight. I am going to start the slides. So September 2021. It's been a quick year. It's been a very quick year. But there's a few really cool things coming for Azure in the last month. But before we get to that, really want to put a big thank you out for our sponsors. So Codify, they've been with us for so long, and they're here for us every step of the way. Whenever we need something, they're here to support us. So they've been fantastic, and they're awesome people. Also Microsoft, we've had tremendous support from Microsoft, so they're great as well in supporting this community group. This group's run by the community. It's not run by Microsoft, but obviously Microsoft are here to step in whenever we need some support. And Todd's been absolutely fantastic with his awesome demos. So thank you very much to our sponsors. They are really fantastic, and without them, we can't have this. The other thing that we critically need in this group is people. So we want people to get involved. So if you're seeing this live now, or if you're seeing this on YouTube afterwards, and I know a lot of people are starting to switch over to YouTube, and we're getting a lot of views through YouTube, but we're really keen to get some people to step up to the plate and do some demos. So it doesn't have to be anything special. It doesn't even have to be an hour. Like if you've got like 20 minutes, we can get a couple of people together with 20 minutes each, and we can go through some topics. We can also make this more interactive. So that's another option too. We might even try that. Like we might have a topic that we can have an interactive discussion about rather than a presentation. That might be another format. And if you want to sort of kick off the topic or lead into the topic with like a 5-minute demo or a 10-minute demo, that's a great way to get your feet wet so that you can just get some experience in leading the community rather than doing a full, big, scary presentation. So we're very flexible. We really want people to get involved. That's the most important thing. It's really about the community, and it's about the people, and it's about everyone getting something out of this. So we don't want to necessarily have the same people over and over again, because we want everybody to get involved. So speak up, get involved, put your hand up, call out to us. There's the link if you want to get in touch with us. It's a really simple Outlook email account. Just grab us, and we'd love to hear from you. Job opportunities. Dan, I'm going to hand this one back to you.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you're looking for a new adventure, we have lots of opportunities available at Deloitte. So please, by all means, reach out to us. You can scan that QR code or contact me, or if you can remember that email address on the bottom for Rebecca McDonald, that's fine. If you do contact Deloitte, mention that you heard about it through this group. And they'll guarantee to hang up the phone on you. No, just kidding. Definitely reach out if you're looking for a new adventure, especially if you're interested in any of those areas that are listed in the skills of interest.
And also let's from a job opportunity to an opportunity to assist the community. I think we want to put ourselves out here. Like if you guys are having trouble with Azure, like let us know. That's what the community is for. Like we can get involved. We can start talking around the community. If you need some small pieces of work, we can get the community involved, and you can get the right information from this community. So it's the right place to go if you've got challenges at work, or for some people who are looking to recruit. This is a perfect platform. A few really cool updates that I thought. This is a really cool feather in the cap for Azure. So streaming analytics in particular in the Forrester Wave. So there's a couple of really key benefits in there that Forrester's called out. So best in class integration, easy to use, and that really should be first. Easy to use. Azure is by far the easiest cloud to use. That's no question. And mission critical by default. Azure's already there. and analytics and the whole edge to cloud. And I've got some great edge example coming up. So that's something to keep in mind. Azure does a really great job in the edge. And this is probably as far edge as you're going to get today, I think. So up in the ISS space station, we've got Azure Edge running across the Spaceborne Computer 2 that was recently launched up to the ISS. And they're doing some really awesome Azure workloads. Now the Edge device, which is the one over on the right-hand side, that's doing a whole bunch of pre-processing and taking a lot of the load off those data links. Now those data links, for the genomic research that they're doing on the space station, obviously they're not unlimited links down to Azure, so they've got to really do that crunching of the data on the edge, then push everything else to Azure to do that calculation and those investigations, and then you can leverage the power of Azure and integrate that with Power BI and store that data. So this is a really fantastic example of how Azure can bring edge to the edge of the earth. Is that fair? I'm going with that one. The edge of space. Anyway, DDoS. So security is something that's pretty close to my heart. We've had a few DDoS trends of late, and I've released this a couple of months back, the trends for last month. And it's interesting to see where these things are happening and going to. You can see that the DDoS attacks have been fairly, up and down a bit, but fairly consistent, really. And then over on the right-hand side, there's also attack destinations, but probably no prizes to know where the biggest destination is. Obviously, it's America. Australia gets a mention in the attack destinations. I don't know if that's a good thing, but I guess it is if people want to come here. And then attack sources. Interestingly, United States is winning for the source of the attacks. As much as the news and everything like that wants to make out Russia to be the evil empire, well, you might be able to see Russia on this chart. It's 3%. They got to pick up their game. They're really failing. Pick up the game a bit.
Unless they're hopping through the US.
Unless, well, they could be doing that too.
Or maybe they're just better at not being detected. So
well, they're really good. Whereas China, apart from America, it's its biggest enemy, but China then next. So China definitely up there on the scoreboards. Unfortunately, Australia's not winning that race. We're not even in the list. So Australians need to get a bit more creative. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. So a few other things that are coming along. Resizing virtual networks. So that's pretty cool. So it allows you to, on the fly, without unpeering, you can then resize them and you can click that sync button, or you can do PowerShell and that sort of stuff. Top secret. That's something it's definitely of interest to me because the Azure Canberra data centers are for government. So if you're starting to see secret and top secret rolled out in the States, well, there's a good chance that some of that stuff may come towards Australia. We've got great partnerships, at a high level with America, so wouldn't be too surprised if we start seeing some more, government use cases in that sort of space. Already, like the IRAP reports put Azure in protected level of data center. So basically, you can run, pretty significant workloads. I think Queensland government defines protected as basically putting lives in immediate danger or compromising the operation of government itself. So it's pretty significantly higher than what you need from a normal day-to-day business. And that's all of the, well, not all of, you can see the Azure services, but all the services that I use are rated at IRAP protected level. So things like app service, for example, you want to put a website up there, it's got a pretty high security classification. So it's pretty good. Azure Migrate. So more and more people trying to migrate workloads into the cloud. There's also a container one as well, so you can migrate containers up to things like app service and that sort of stuff. This one here is that they've announced is a VMware-based appliance that you install, and it gives you a bit of a holistic report across your enterprise of, you know, what workloads can migrate and what are the challenges with some of the workloads and where you might need to invest more before you migrate. It's a pretty cool sort of setup. There's a couple ones in here for Java. So the Spring Cloud, and you've heard me talk about Spring Cloud over the last couple of months. They're just going massive in Azure. So all the people that love the Java development, there's a whole lot of love coming out for you guys at the moment with the Spring Cloud. Dynatrace is a great tool for analytics. I still, my favorite's App Insights, but you know, Dynatrace is pretty cool too. And that's pretty much it for this month. There's a couple of events coming up. So Integration Down Under. So Dan's also puts in a new...
Let Bill talk about it.
Bill, take it away.
Yes. So we have our Integration Down Under tomorrow night. It also is on YouTube, and if you just go to integrationdownunder.com, you will find all the details about that and the link for the live stream. So we live stream it on YouTube. So go to that, and it's about Logic App Standard tomorrow night.
Nice. With a bit of Bicep too. Bicep's kicking up over and over again. That's it, Dan. Also for you know, data in the cloud, there's another one up here. So unfortunately, it's 2 a.m. Brisbane time. But if you are interested in looking at data in the cloud, data governance, that's probably another one that's pretty worthwhile checking out. And a couple of resources that I always recommend. So Slack, we've got a Slack, we've got a YouTube. Hopefully you've heard YouTube. Oh, sorry, my bad. And what else? So some learning resources that are pretty cool. Definitely get into that. And these are the blogs that I check out. So they're really worth looking at. If you've got other blog recommendations, flick them through. We might get them up here, no promises, but these are some pretty cool blogs, definitely. And tonight, without any extra further ado, because there's already been a bit, I want to welcome Bill, who you've already heard from tonight. So welcome again, Bill.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So Azure AD MSI for Integration Services. Take it away.
Okay, let me share my screen. So can you see my screen now? Should be my slides.
Can do.
Sure can.
Okay. Thanks everyone for taking the time to attend tonight. So I forgot the title, but okay. But tonight what I'll do is I'm talking about using the Azure AD Managed Service Identity. Target it more at integration services, but it doesn't have to be integration services. It could be a lot of the different Azure resources, and I've got a list later on that we'll talk about that. So a little bit about myself. Again, like Damien said, if you need help with things, just reach out either on Twitter or my email at SixPivot. And let's go ahead. And so for the agenda tonight, we'll just a little bit general around managing secrets, then a little bit of why use the managed service identity, how it interacts with API management and logic apps and functions. So just to give you some kind of hands-on of how to do it in those particular different products. So again, generally, one of the things that always seems to be hard, or at least not hard as much as complex, is trying to manage secrets across multiple environments, trying to do it in your DevOps process without having them buried in lots of configuration files or multi-levels. A lot of times I've been using app configuration and then app configuration linked through to Key Vault. But one of the things that the app configuration and Key Vault links work really good for functions, but they don't work quite as good. That combination doesn't work quite as good for things like logic apps, doesn't work quite as good for things like API management. But so one of the ways around that is this managed service identity, and you don't have to manage secrets anymore. So you don't have secrets anywhere, so they can't get compromised. You don't have to remember to update them. All of that stuff goes away when you start using your managed service identity. There is a little bit of an overhead that you'll end up using or having to do is about getting the right managed service identities added as into the access control lists of the different resources you want to use. One of the tricks I use around that is to use some groups in Azure AD. So you put all of your, say, logic apps into a group, and then you give that group access to storage or SQL or things like that. So that's one of the things you can do to help that. So why MSI? So MSI, it's associated with a particular resource. And you'll see this when we get into the demo that the resource has a space where you can do your managed identity. They don't expire like some of the secrets. There are a few of the secrets you can actually set so they don't expire. But in terms of security policies, that's probably not what you should do with them. They should expire. But when you're using the managed service in the MSIs, basically, that is a service principal in your Azure AD that you can write access control rules against, use the RBAC to do that. Now, there are two different flavors of MSI, and not everything supports the user assigned one, but pretty much all of the pieces that support the system assigned. So let me just see if I can bring this up. This trouble last time. Hold on a second, guys. Let me just grab. No, that's not what I wanted to do. Backwards. Let's see if I can get that. If not, let me just open a browser over here real quick. And okay. Why can't I get that to come up? Okay, just give me another second real quick. And let me just try to get that to the right thing. Directory. Okay, sorry about this, folks. Just let me get. Okay, so basically here is that link takes you to a page that shows you all of the different Azure resources. So like API management and also which regions support it, whether it's systems assigned or user assigned. So there's app config, Azure App Services, Arc Enable Kubernetes. A lot of these are still in preview. Azure Automation, Blueprint, Cognitive Search, container instances, Data Explorer, Data Factory, Event Grid. Those are in preview. Azure Functions. So there's a lot of the different Azure services that are supporting the managed service identity. So let's go on and talk a little about the differences between system assigned and user assigned. Really, it's just that ability to create your entity up front and use that now. And one of the reasons that people prefer this is that they can use that same identity for multiple services. So you might have a situation where, okay, you want one managed service identity to be across several of your resources so that you only write one single rule for that managed identity, and then your functions, your logic apps, things like that can all access the resources through that one managed identity. A little bit, I kind of go back to the side where I like different ones. That way I know I can look at some of the security logs and I can tell who came through what connection, things like that. But basically we can do pretty much the same thing. We can write RBAC role assignments and grant permissions. We can look at the activity in the Azure activity logs, things like that. So the only real difference is that you create the identity yourself, and that way you could have, say, okay, this identity gets created, your security people add that identity to these particular roles in Azure, or they add them to this set of resources, and then you go from there. Depends on how much control. I like to do all of this through Azure DevOps, but if you do a service connection through Azure DevOps, you would have to give that service connection user admin access, so that it's allowed to grant permissions and add the managed identities to the resources. So one of the things that you can also do from the API management point of view is you can use in the API management policies, you can say authenticate managed identity against a particular resource. So if you want the API management to be able to do things against the graph, you can use that. You can do it against the management APIs, Key Vault, Service Bus, storage, database, or a particular client ID. So if you're calling to, say, a Azure function and you want that client ID to be in a particular group, then you would use a specific client ID that is an application registration in the Azure AD to do that. So again, all of these things do in a demo. I will show you how that you can use API management to get people to drop a file into Azure storage. So without using any other code except API management policies. Again, using that managed identity. I mean, we could always use secrets and have them in the API management either as a named value or as a key vault link, but this shows you basically using that managed identity. Now, one of the examples I'll also show you is going from API management to a logic app and using this managed identity. Inside of our logic app, what we actually do is we have either through the portal, we can set up that we want the issuer to be our Active Directory, and we want the user that it's using to be our API management instance. And I'll show you this when we get into the demo, that is the ID of the managed identity for API management. Now, the other way you can do it is inside of an ARM template, and I'm sure there's also the bicep version of this too, but basically you say, I want to use AAD, and the tenant I want to use is there, and the ID, managed identity, or basically the identity principle of our API management. Also, what I've added in this particular one example is also got the locking the execution of a logic app to a particular IP address of our API management instance. Okay. With functions, what we do is there is a setting in the portal that is authentication, and you set it up for the Microsoft authentication provider, and then basically you get a client ID to use to execute that function. One of the things that I wasn't as impressed with functions is I still needed that key to be part of the call. I was hoping, like they do in functions or like they do in logic apps, you can get rid of the signature when you call a logic app with managed identity. You don't have to have that, but functions, you do have to do that. Okay, we're going to go to the demo. This might be a time. Is there any questions, Dan?
No, I don't see any yet.
Okay, so yeah, I wanted to spend most of the
hang
time.
on. Sorry, it didn't come up as a badge, but Wayne Hoggett says when you create a managed identity, it creates a service principal for the MSI and Azure AD, and you can add that to RBAC groups and stuff. So it's not a question; it's a statement. But,
yeah, that is correct. So yeah, it creates that that service principal, and then you can basically add that service principal to a group or write specific RBAC rules for the different resources based on that managed identity. So the one thing that I will say that is a good idea to do is that if you have resources across dev, test, UAT, prod, a lot of times all of those different subscriptions or resource groups will share the same Azure AD. So one of the things that I make sure is that every resource in those different environments has that environment name somewhere in the resource name. So it's much easier to look at the service principals in Azure AD to make sure you've got the right one. So it's going to either have dev or test or UAT or prod somewhere in its name. Okay, so let me go ahead and hop out here. So for this, I've got a few things set up. I've got an API management instance. I've got a logic app. I've got a function. I've got some storage accounts. That's pretty much what I've got in here for this. And what I want to do is I'll go into my API management instance. The first thing I'll show is that we have our identity, and it always escapes me. There it is, managed identity. So that's set up, and there is the service principal ID of the managed identity for API management training VC. So if we go look in the Active Directory, so if I go back to here and say we go to the Active Directory, and I can find in my app registrations and do APIM, you'll see that there is that identity. And believe it or not, that is slightly different, but once you get in there, you'll actually see that the correct one of those. If we go back here and look at CEB, no, it doesn't. Okay. This is one of the issues that I've had. Sometimes they give it a lot of different IDs. Now, let me just see if that's the right one. Go in here to the authentication. Yeah, that is the right one. So that's why it's much easier to do that via a name. And that's why in that ARM template, that ARM template example I showed, I actually look that up based on the name. I don't try to pass around those GUIDs. So let's go back to here. So that gets that. That's our managed service identity for our API management. Now, if we go look at our APIs, so I've got an API here that's calling my Logic app. And basically I got a couple of policies, got one policy at the all operations level. Let's see, is that the all APIs? No, there's a CORS policy there, but then basically we've got policy at the particular post operation, and we can open this up. So here's where we're adding that authentication header. Now, I recently did a project for a client, and one of the interesting things, when I first published my Logic app, I was using the standard way of publishing a Logic app and basically creating a backend that had a signature and all that kind of stuff. And come to find out, they had this authentication line in their global API policy. So all of a sudden I ran my Logic app and I get this error that says that you can't have both an authentication header and a signature. And I'm going, where did the authentication header come from? And then I actually dug through and found it back in their all API policy. So what I had to do to use that normal signature for my Logic app, I needed to do a delete on that authorization header as it came through. Let's see what else. That's basically gives me the authentication I need. And so what I can do is I can go here and hit to test. And so basically I just have content type, and I can just basically do some very simple JSON payload. And then basically go here and you'll see, let's hit send on that. And that didn't work very well. Okay, so let's go look at our Logic app. And so there's our Logic app. So it didn't actually hit the Logic app. So let's go back here and have a look, see what it's telling us. Okay. Let's try that one more time and just see if it, nope, it's still getting that internal error. So we can go to our trace. Let's go have a look at the trace. Let's see. Error obtaining the managed identity. Okay. So that's okay. I know what I've done, I bet. Let's go back to our policy and go into the policy for this one. It's probably that ID there that I've done something with. So let's go and grab the identity from our Logic app. So, authorization, there's our identity. Go there and just update that one and save it. And let's go here to test. Save that off, but and let's try that. Does not like, for some reason tonight, to get the managed to get the identity. Okay, so let's go back through the process. What we'll do is that see if that identity Let's turn off the managed identity. And then wait for that to apply real quick. Sorry about this, guys. It worked the other night in the demo I did for Integration Down Under, and for some reason it's decided that it doesn't like. That may take a couple of minutes. So, was it? Now, while this is while that's doing that, let's go ahead and look at the other API that I've got set up, and I'll probably have to. It's trying to tell me to wait on that. So the other thing I've got set up out here is I've got a storage account. Let's go find that storage account. And I've got a container in that storage account called training. And then I've got the access control set up on that. So my role assignment. And what we'll see is that most likely there's a blob storage contributor now that says identity not found because I'm in the process of disabling it. So now let me add the managed identity back in. And then what I'll have to do is go into here and add that identity back in as a storage blob data contributor, and then it'll be available for that. So let's go and just wait for that to enable. And then we'll come into here and it takes just a second to enable. Any questions while I'm waiting for this to enable?
No questions, just a few comments about whether you sacrificed enough to the demo gods, that's all.
Yeah, I didn't, obviously not. It was coming off a company call at 5:45 onto this at 6. So if you don't believe it worked before, you can go to Integration Down Under, and the video from the other night is there. So now what I need to do is go over to here and do a add role assignment, and it's storage blob contributor, and I need to search for APIM, and there is a couple of those now. I'm going to put both of them in there just to make sure. Now, let's go back to here and see if we can get that API to work. So I've got my storage one. It's a put, and basically hit the test button. It again, and if we go and look at the design here and look at this one, we have the piece in here where it's setting up all the blob storage, but then we also got the authentication where we're doing the storage.azure.com. We're using that resource to give us access. So let's go in here and hit test. And I need I got a couple of parameters on here I'm doing, and I'm going to make this 6. And then I'm going to put a nice bit of text in there. And we should just be able to go send. Okay, not authorized to perform this operation. And let's just make sure that no. Okay, let's go back to the other one and see if this made any difference for that token. Okay, here we go. Nope, it still does not want to get the token. Okay. So I am not sure what has changed between the other night and tonight, but it just does not now want to get a token, because let's see if the put, that one's going to have, looks like the same issue of not being able to get the token. And it should be that. No. And what we'll do is we're not going to see the bearer token coming in. That's the, why is that? Just go here real quick, just look quickly at that policy.
Bill Wayne's asked if you recopied your MSI GUID after recreating the MSI.
Recopied it to where? Because basically this uses this doesn't actually use that MSI GUID in this one. The other one, it doesn't use the GUID from, let's try this one. This is the other example. I'm just don't understand it, why it's failing to get the bearer token, because these aren't based on the API management side of it. It's based on the, okay, so let me just hit test on that and see if I can find, okay, let's do that. That one worked for a change. Let me just have a quick look, but to see if it actually did work. That succeeded. And that added the bearer token to it. Now, why did that one work? Okay, so let's go back to here, go into here, grab that, go into there. Sorry about this, folks. And let me just put that one into there and save that. Test. Mismatched authentication claims. But that's interesting because it did get, did it get the bearer token? Yeah, see, that got the bearer token then. So why did that?
Does it take a while for the managed service identity to replicate and be available, or did you just create that one after recently?
It shouldn't have, no. So let's go and just try this real quick on this one again. Send. It must have. Okay, so I actually got storage created. So let's look at the parameters we used. We used API management training as the container and myfile7, and we had those characters in it. Now, if we go out here to our storage and go look at the overview of our storage, there's my myfile7. And then if we edit that, we'll see that those are that wonderful characters I put in that. So for some reason, it took a little while for that to propagate. Now, don't know why it didn't. So let's see if we can go to this logic app and see if it said what it says here. So it never got to the logic app from there. So let's go back to this guy. That's MSI, and just try that. One of the oh, I know. Okay, I'll fix this. I know how to fix this one. This one's actually pretty easy. Managed identity. Actually, yep. Let's try that. Go into the authorization section of the portal here. Paste over that. Save it, because the managed identity of the API management changed when I dropped it and started again. So let's go up and APIs, logic app, MSI test, and send. Ah, it worked finally. Okay, so what the flow is supposed to be, and I don't know why that API management instance dropped out, but it goes through there and goes and gets the managed identity. So it says it's getting a token for that. And then when it goes to the back end, you see that that bearer token is added to the stream automatically by that simple thing of having that managed identity in the policy. And again, like I said, you could put it on the individual operation. You could put it at the API level, or you could put it at the policy level, or you could put it at the all API level. So it's basically everything gets that identity. So, and in this particular case, what we were checking is just that it came from API management. So that's one of the things that you could do, is that if we go back to our this logic app, I've got it set up to where it takes the authorization piece here from with the token coming in, but I've also got the workflow settings, so it's taking a specific IP address. And so if I was using the consumption-based API management where it doesn't have a fixed IP address, I could then just use this authorization policy to guarantee that it came from my instance of API management. That would keep anybody else from sending to it, because it's not going to come from that instance of API management. So let's see, I think I've got a sample of that here. Is that basically if I want to, let's see, where's the, that's the websites for the, that I don't have the, yeah, there it is. That's the HTTP trigger for, that's for the API. Ah, here it is. So here is calling our logic app directly, not going through API management. So if I try to run that, you'll see that basically the client IP address is not allowed in the caller IP. But I can also go in there, and the other way I did this was the, let's see, do I have the signature? I got the signature on that. The other way to do it is that if I call this one that doesn't have the signature on it, this is an issue that I ran into with logic apps. So this one's now telling me it's not using the authentication scheme. It does that first. So if I got using the consumption-based API management instance, I could use this to protect my downstream resources by saying they have to come through API management. So the last one of those is, again, that function that I've got a function set up. And the only problem with the function that I found is that you still have to pass the code for the function. And I'll show you that when we look at the trace. Or that's the code that you have to pass through for the function. And we can hit that, and that goes through and returns that hello Bill. And if we look at that function app, so we go into here, I've enabled the authentication to be Microsoft and my Active Directory tenant. And then inside the actual function, just a simple HTTP trigger. And if you get the function URL, you'll see that that code is there. And unlike the logic apps, you can't remove that. You still got to send that code through. But what you could do is, if you are counting on always using the API management throughput to this and restricting it to API management via the AD token, you could you could make this function use anonymous as opposed to require a function key. So, okay, so sorry for the delay in getting that to work, but we did see a few of the errors that you get. The one nice thing that I want to point out to, especially with API management, is that when you do a test, you can go look at the trace, and then you can go down here and make sure that it's getting that bearer token coming through before it goes. And again, in your logic app, you have that authorization set up of how you want it to be. And then basically you can have multiple policies here. And I think that's pretty much what I wanted to show. Are there any questions?
No questions yet, Bill. Just a remark when Chris said no apologies needed. It is actually probably educational watching you plow through that and work out the errors. That's what we all have to do in real life anyway. So
yeah, it's usually I always say that when I'm doing training is, if you actually break it first and then have to fix it, you learn a lot more than if all the things work perfect the first time. But yeah, I'm not sure why that particular instance of API management lost its managed identity for being able to get the tokens. But again, you do that through the ARM templates and stuff, and lots of times you just take it for granted because when you deploy the ARM templates, it sets everything up for you. And actually, there's one other thing I did want to show is, in here in the ARM template, what you can do, actually, shut that down, get the ARM template back up. One of the other things is that you can set up the role assignments. And I don't know if I've got it in this particular one. I probably don't. But what you can do is you can set up the role assignments via your ARM template. So basically, it can go look up the managed identity of the different resources and then add them as a role to the particular resource. So the storage account, the logic app, Key Vault, and app config are the ones I typically use, because I want to make sure that if I create a new function app or a new logic app, they automatically have access to those through that role assignment. And up until that role assignment, I was doing PowerShell in my deployment to add them to those resources. But I got the role assignment stuff to work finally, and that made it a whole lot easier. It's not in this particular example though. But if you do want to have that role assignment stuff, I can. If you just drop me an email or hit me on Twitter, I can show you what that role assignment looks like. There is a little bit of a trick to it. You have to go out and let me just see if where I've got that. You have to go out and you have to run a query in, let me just grab this real quick. Hold on. You have to run a query in Azure to get the IDs of the particular roles that you want to add to. And let me see if I've got that. Bear with me a second. One of the problems I've got, I just switched over to a new machine, and of course, nothing's on that machine yet. Okay, but here is the command I wanted to do. Okay, so with my role assignments, one of the things I have to do is I need to go out into Azure. That's not where I wanted to be. Where's Azure? Okay, so we'll open up our command window. The command shell come up the rest of the way.
While we're waiting that,
Yep.
Mike thinks that you've already answered his question, but his question was, can it all be deployed with an ARM template? I think you just shown us that, haven't you?
Yep. Let me I'm just waiting for that to come up. So basically what you have to do is you have to go in here and you have to do, I'll paste that, looking at the role definition list and outputting those. And so basically what you end up with is a list of all of the different resources. So like, where is it at? Key Vault. If you want them to be assign them to the role of Key Vault administrator, you have to use that GUID in your role assignment. And just let me, I'm just going to try to find. Yep. And let me just going to grab something real quick for you out of another project.
Those
Yeah, so basically what you have to do is I put those role IDs into some variables, and then you basically say, okay, here's my, this particular one is using the ID of the DevOps service connection to add to a Key Vault via service principal. And that sets up the role assignment there that my DevOps service connection is now a Key Vault administrator. So that it can do all of the stuff that I need to do against Key Vault in my DevOps pipeline. And this particular one here, let me just paste that one in. This is basically say, I just want somebody that's able to read a secret, and it's a logic app. And it's using that to add that role assignment against there. Only little tricky thing is that in this authorization name, it has to be a unique string, and it needs to be a unique GUID. And there is a little bit of a trick there that says basically you can do a GUID and you give it the resource group ID plus the name of the logic app, and it'll create a unique GUID with that set of values. So there's a few things like that you can do, but you need to have that. And what I do is I have in my, I'll just take a quick shot of this and put it up. How I handle this is that
Chris is asking if it has to be globally unique or unique to the tenant.
Unique to the resource group, I think. So here's what I do in my ARM template. I have that command in there as a comment. And then there's my variable that basically goes out subscription role ID with that value that you get from the query. And then there's my Key Vault administrator and my Key Vault secret user. And that's basically it's, I leave that command in there so that I need to find a different one. I've got the command there for me to find them. So just a little bit of kind of self-documentation in there. Because you can have, and this is one of the things I messed up to begin with. There is Key Vault Reader, but then there's Key Vault Secret User. Key Vault Reader can read the configuration of the Key Vault, but not the secrets. So you have to have a Key Vault Secret User to read the secrets. Okay, so that's pretty much what
Bill, those IDs for the built-in roles, is that
Yep.
static for all of Azure, or is it specific to subscriptions, region, or anything? Like if you get it once, you only have to get it once and then that's it?
Yeah, because that command is, if we look at the command again, it's Azure role definitions. There's no subscription or anything associated with them, no tenant associated with them.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's too bad. There needs to be something in the ARM template that says go get the role, but I haven't found it yet. If anybody finds it, please let me know. So
Yeah.
here's like giving you access to API management. If you go down there, there's event grid. And basically these are the same things that if you went through the portal and said, I want to be a Key Vault secret user, you could do it. But this allows you to do it through the ARM templates, and I'm assuming Bicep will do the same thing. So, okay, is there any other questions?
No, I think we covered them all, but feel free to come off mute if anybody wants to ask a question directly.
Yep, I'll just, and thanks everybody for attending, and I will pop my contact details up there again if anybody needs to get in touch with me. Got any questions, comments, things like that, please get in touch with me. And then I will stop sharing my screen.
Awesome.
There we go. We're back.
All right. Well, thanks, Bill. That was that was really informative and helpful. And it's actually, as I said, it was and as pointed out by Chris as well, that it's actually really good to see somebody work through a problem too and get that, it shows the experience in there and reflects what happens to us all in real life. So that was probably a bit of fortune there that happened.
Yeah. So I mean, the biggest problem most developers will face with that is they probably don't have enough access to the Active Directory to do a lot of that stuff that I did. So, yeah. And that's one of the things is that because when the service connection gets created from Azure DevOps into a subscription, it gets set as a contributor, and a contributor can't make security changes. So it can't add people to things or so what I do is there's a user admin access admin privilege also in the subscription that I give that service connection service principal, so I can do that. And that's the only thing that you have to do extra to that to let it do that. The other thing you can do is if they don't want to do that, they can give you, there is a role in Active Directory that is application administrator, which basically will allow you to create those service principals and things like that. And then what you do is you have to use a group approach. So you have to get the AD groups created, give those AD groups permission against your resources, and then you add your applications into those groups.
Okay.
It just depends on what security privileges you have.
Sure.
And that's the biggest issue around that, is that how much the security admins trust you.
Right.
So the group approach is the way around most of that, because basically what you'll do is you'll create your groups, you'll get your be able owner of the group, and then you can add the access to the groups and things like that. So, but again, if people have got questions, just reach out. My biggest thing about this whole thing is you don't have to manage secrets. You don't have secrets in your DevOps variables. You don't have secrets in your key vault and things like that. And the problem is if you go create secrets in a lot of those Azure resources, they only last for 2 years. I think that's the maximum some of those things will last. So you're going to be done and on to the next project, and that secret's going to expire. And you're going to get a call going, it's not working. So you just have to be a little bit careful of that, the way that works. Okay.
Cool.
Any other questions?
There's no other questions. Just a couple of thank yous, and yeah, and as people who come to this group all the time know, we really appreciate our speakers and all the time and effort that they put into preparing these presentations. So if this was a real life event, I'd be handing you this in person, but there's nothing to stop with modern technology for being able to just pass.
We got a bottle on both sides.
There you go.
Yep.
All right.
So,
awesome.
And
So thanks.
if Melbourne ever gets out of lockdown, I might come back to Brisbane for a visit.
Yes, that would be great. Good to have you there. I know you've been here many times and presented to us, so that's awesome.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm going on almost a year and 3/4 right now without being on the plane.
Wow. Yeah.
And I was averaging about 4 to 6 flights a month. So
I think my last flight was to Sydney in March last year. Yeah. It was just before lockdown started.
Mine was before. Mine was in February. So, but yeah. So, and I was only a week off of heading to the U.S. when everything locked down. So,
right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thanks everybody for coming tonight. And if anybody has any ideas about next month or would like to step up, please let us know. Otherwise, we'll hunt around for somebody. So keep an eye on the meetup group about the next meeting. I think it's October 13th, maybe, I think is probably the date, whatever that second Wednesday is.
Yep.
And awesome. So have a good night, everyone. And thanks.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Damien.
Yep.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
See you next time.
Thanks all.